Welcome to the Carl Jackson Show, your daily dose of objective truth in a world of confusion and lies. Guys, we had a third debate last night, and it was the best debate, in my opinion, by far. I'm shocked to say that, given the fact that NBC News ran the debate. I think it was the best night for Ron DeSantis. By far, Vivek Ramaswamy put in another strong performance. I think he was neck and neck, but I would give DeSantis a slight edge. Nikki Haley had a decent night, but I felt like she was on her heels just a little bit too much. Chris Christie and Senator Tim Scott, I am still wondering what the heck they're doing there. And obviously, you had Donald Trump that had a separate rally trying to distract from the debate in Miami as well. We'll get to all of that and more on this edition of the Carl Jackson Show podcast. All right. Welcome to the Carl Jackson Show podcast. Again, your daily dose of objective truth in a world of confusion and lies. Please subscribe to the podcast wherever you go to get your podcast. That includes Apple, Google, Spotify, YouTube, and Rumble. Por favor. All right. And also all things social media at the Carl Jackson Show. Twitter, Instagram, True Social, Facebook, Getter. So anywhere that I am at the Carl Jackson Show is where you can go to find me. I'm sorry, guys. I'm a little giddy. This is a little late that we're putting out this podcast. It's been an extremely busy morning. I mean, from a radio interview to a taped TV appearance to doing the podcast to sitting in for Officer Tatum, but I'm doing it because I love you guys and I want to win back this culture. I want to win back America. All right, so I want to play some clips right away, and then I'm going to give you my take on that. I'm going to give you some of the things, some of the reasons why I appreciated this debate. I'm not saying it was the best debate ever, all right, so don't get me wrong, but I got to say this. I was shocked to turn on this debate and get some substantive answers. I was absolutely shocked. I did not expect it. Perhaps I should have expected it. NBC was hosting, so I didn't expect it for that reason. But there were some sponsors, Salem Radio Network, so I should have known better, forgive me, and also the Jewish Republican Coalition that helped to sponsor it. So I do believe the questions were better. I wish the format was better. I still wish there were fewer people so we could get even more substance. I wish they would go back and forth just a little more. I don't want a food fight, but if it's on policy discussion, I'm completely okay with it. I didn't like Lester Holt. I felt like he was a little too condescending, you know what I mean? But the other chick didn't bother me as much. She bothered Vivek Ramaswamy, which we'll get to in just a second. Hugh Hewitt, I thought he did a good job representing Salem. He was solid, just getting the questions in, letting the people answer the question, asking for the answers to the question. For the most part, all of them did pretty good doing that. They better debate than both Fox debates combined. Hate to say that, but it was just true. It was so obvious. I was shocked. Anyway, let's get right to some video that I will react to it. And obviously, this is the one that went completely viral, and everybody's talking about it. And it's one of the reasons why you'll hear a lot of names, even prominent names on radio, that says Vivek won the debate. I don't believe he did, and I know a lot of people listen. I don't believe Vivek won. And I'll explain why. And no, it's not because I call Vivek the fake. I'll explain why. But I do want you to watch this viral moment because it was intense. It was good, and obviously it scored a lot of points for Vivek Ramaswamy. Let's go ahead and roll it, Gabe. Por favor.
Why should you be the nominee and not the former president?
I think there's something deeper going on in the Republican Party here, and I am upset about what happened last night. We've become a party of losers at the end of the day. It was a cancer in the Republican establishment. Let's speak the truth. I mean, since Ronna McDaniel took over as chairwoman of the RNC in 2017, we have lost 2018, 2020, 2022, no red wave that never came. We got trounced last night in 2023. And I think that we have to have accountability in our party. For that matter, Ron, if you want to come on stage tonight, you want to look the GOP voters in the eye and tell them you resign, I will yield my time to you. And frankly, look, the people there cheering for losing in the Republican Party. Think about who's moderating this debate. This should be Tucker Carlson, Joe Rogan, and Elon Musk. We'd have 10 times the viewership, asking questions that GOP primary voters actually care about and bringing more people into our party. Do you think the Democrats, and we've got Kristen Welker here, do you think the Democrats would actually hire Greg Gutfeld to host a Democratic debate? They wouldn't do it. And so the fact of the matter is, I mean, Kristen, I'm going to use this time because this is actually about you in the media and the corrupt media establishment. Ask you, the Trump-Russia collusion hoax that you pushed on this network for years, was that real or was that Hillary Clinton made up disinformation? Answer the question. Go.
Mr. Ross.
Sorry. This is how we get our country back. We need accountability because this media rigged the 2016 election. They rigged the 2020 election with the Hunter Biden laptop story.
Mr. Ramaswamy,
and they're going to rig this election.
Your time is up.
Accountability.
Let me turn to Governor.
Now you got to give it to him. You got to give it to him because it takes a level of cojones to do that. Here's why. I know. All right, political theater matters. I don't believe Vivek Ramaswamy has a lot of substance, and I think a lot of people are falling for it. That's it. I don't dislike the guy. I supported him. I donated to his campaign initially. I was like, this guy is the bomb. This is the guy I think that I want to roll with initially. He was just a breath of fresh air. I began doing a little research on him. I've shared that before. But let me tell you, and actually I'll give Gabe the credit because every once in a while, it's extremely rare. I mean, it's extremely, completely rare. I mean, you don't know how rare it is. But Gabe came up with a very good analogy. And Vivek Ramaswamy is that guy that tells the girl absolutely everything that she wants to hear. And even when you go back and when you look at that video, think of the names that he mentioned. Who did he mention? Tucker Carlson, Joe Rogan, good Lord, Elon Musk. Why did he mention those names? I mean, it's a very smart play. This guy's a tactician. I give him, or strategist, I give him credit. This is a guy that, in my opinion, goes on social media, goes on X, goes on Twitter. He sees what the popular takes are, not necessarily in tune with the people, but he wants to know how to think like the people. He sees what gets a rise off of people, and his team says, let me write this down. Let me figure out how I can say this I just don't think it's authentic. I just don't. I love the fact that he says it because obviously, regardless, it brings attention to it. And Ronna McDaniel, listen, I'm the one I've been saying for the longest. I thought Harmeet Dillon should have been the person. I think one of Trump's biggest personnel mistakes is not endorsing in that RNC race. However, I will say this as well, something that I found out I didn't realize. Ronna McDaniel has given some advice to some of these candidates for the better, and according to some that know the inside workings, they're taking advice from their own donors. So it's like she can give all the free advice she wants. It doesn't mean people are going to take it. But when it comes to organizing, the Republican Party has a serious issue. Messaging, serious issue. So anyway, hopefully they will learn. But having said that, there were several more takes that we could have played of Vivek Ramaswamy, but he always has a great soundbite. I heard someone else say, I believe this was Stu Burguiere. I think that was him. I heard him say earlier, and it makes perfect sense to me. Notice how Vivek Ramaswamy is a different person every single debate, and he's absolutely right. Completely aggressive in the first debate because you want to stand out. You want to make sure that people know you. He's extremely brilliant, talented, so on, etc. The second debate he got a lot of heat because he was almost too aggressive, and so he was conciliatory in the second debate, toned it down. That didn't work out as well for him. His poll numbers have, just fallen off the bottom floor since then, in my opinion. I mean, he's just not gaining traction anymore. And so this time he comes out for the gusto too. I don't believe that Vivek Ramaswamy is necessarily running for the presidency, perhaps vice president, perhaps a cabinet position, perhaps senator or something else in the state of Ohio. Later, he also mentioned how he was upset of the losses that we took on election night. This guy is almost a billionaire, or is a billionaire. I'd like to know how much he helped to fund the alternative message in Ohio. I really would, when it comes to issue 1. I really would. I just think he's fake. I think he's fake. I think I think he would be a cool guy to hang around with. I think eventually when he gets more, I guess he's evolving. I think when he gets more time to think through his conservative positions, obviously, rhetorically, this guy will be a juggernaut. But I just don't think the time for him is now. And I don't think he moves the needle. These are all Trump supporters. I even think when it comes to polling, I think people are like, oh, man, I absolutely love this guy, but they're going to vote for Trump anyway. I don't even necessarily believe the polling for him because you don't need him with Trump. And some people will say that's the case with everybody. I don't think that's the case with everybody. I really don't. I don't think that's the case with DeSantis. I'm not sure about Nikki Haley. But anyway, here's Nikki Haley. And by the way, I didn't bring up video of Tim Scott or Chris Christie. I frankly do believe that Tim Scott had his best night. I thought he had a horrible, maybe first half of the debate. He seemed to come on point the second half. One of the things that he did do, I will give him props for, he mentioned how right away, when it came to the economy, how if we started drilling, re-implement it or restore the Keystone XL pipeline, that would bring prices of fuel down right away. Lester Holt, who didn't have a clue what he was talking about, saying, well, it wouldn't bring prices down right away. And then Tim Scott corrected him, and he said, "Actually, yes, it would. Basically, because these things, oil is bought and sold on the futures market, and so when we know the supply, then the cost, adjust accordingly." And so that I was very proud of Tim Scott for doing that. Having said that, he is just too moderate for my taste. All right. So anyway, but I thought it was his best night. Not a great night, but I thought it was his best night as well. Chris Christie, I'm struggling at this point to understand why he was there. I know he first got in the race to become a foil, if you will, for Donald Trump, to try to knock Donald Trump off the race. Donald Trump isn't anywhere to be found. And so he's just like chilling on the stage. And I don't know why he's there. He's answering the questions. I really don't know why he's there. And I would say this too about Vivek Ramaswamy. I think the reason why he got into the race initially was just to take out Donald Trump. DeSantis. I think Christie got in to try to knock Donald Trump down a notch. It hasn't worked. I think Ramaswamy got in to knock down DeSantis a notch. And initially it looked like it was going to work until it didn't. So now I think it's two men trying to find their place in this race. Now, having said that, let me move on. Who do you want to go to next, Gabe? Nikki Haley or Governor Ron DeSantis? All right, we'll go on to Nikki Haley. And I got to tell you this, I will say this about Vivek Ramaswamy. I think he came to destroy Nikki Haley. He was going after her. And honestly, I like that. I thought, I thought that was good. I thought, now what I didn't like, I can't lie, when he went after her daughter, I'm like, it's, you know what I'm saying? Like, I get it. I get it. Well, your daughter was on the whole TikTok debate. Well, you say you're against TikTok, but your daughter was on it. Meanwhile, her daughter is a grown behind adult, so her daughter can do whatever the flip she chooses. And I'm like, dude, don't do that. Don't bring people's kids into that. When I think about that, I'm like, all right, if she would have pimp slapped him at that particular point, I'm not even a fan of Nikki Haley, but I would have been cheering for the chick. Like, don't bring my family into this stuff. And I will say this about DeSantis. He took a swipe Vivek did at both Nikki Haley and DeSantis. Apparently, Ron DeSantis's boots have been getting a lot of play online. People talking about, they were heels and all this kind of stuff. If I'm Ron DeSantis, I know he's kind of trying to ignore that. I would capitalize on that. And I'll say, you know why I wear cowboy boots? Because I'm going to stick my foot up China's behind. If he would say something like that, Gabe, am I wrong? I think he would surge. That's what I wish DeSantis had. But he's a killer when it comes to legislation and policy. But man, campaigning, not great. But last night was his best night. Let's go ahead and, I don't think we played Nikki Haley, right? I was talking too much. Okay, so we'll play Nikki Haley. This is Nikki Haley trying to just basically establishing her foreign policy bona fides, even though I would disagree with the extent to which she wants to fight and fund Ukraine. But here's Nikki Haley.
Ambassador Haley, what would you do? What would you be urging Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to do? Would you consider humanitarian pause, for example?
The first thing I said to him when it happened was I said, finish them. finish them. And the reason is I worked on this every day when I was at the United Nations. And we have to remember that they have to, 1, eliminate Hamas, 2, support Israel with whatever they need whenever they need it, and 3, make sure we bring our hostages home. We need to be very clear-eyed to know there would be no Hamas without Iran. There would be no Hezbollah without Iran. There would not be the Houthis without Iran. And there wouldn't be the Iranian militias in Syria and Iraq that are trying to hit our military men and women if it hadn't been for Iran.
And I would have to say this about Nikki Haley. When it came to that particular answer, almost everybody gave that answer. Like when it came to Israel and Hamas, I mean, these were one of the issues. I had some notes here. I'm not going to have time to go through all of them, but listen, abortion, that was an issue that they covered. The troops on the southern border, I think there were some great answers given on that particular one. I think DeSantis, in my opinion, had the better answer on that. Acting against college anti-Semitism, all of them gave similar answers, on that. Deterring China or Taiwan. I was speaking to a gentleman today, and forgive me, I forget his name, but he made a great point about he believes that Vivek Ramaswamy is trying to carve out a new foreign policy niche, kind of be like more the Ron Paul in this particular race, which I thought was a really good observation, and he may be right, and I think Vivek is bright enough to pull it off. Advancing with to Israel, advice to Netanyahu in Israel. Again, DeSantis had a similar response. I actually think a better response than Nikki Haley, but she gets credit for her bona fides. Who else had a similar? Was it Vivek? I'm not sure. I cannot remember. Iran as the head of the snake. They all talked about that, how America is the greatest country that God has ever given man. You saw Ramaswamy rip into the moderators. Those were some of the takeaways from the Heritage Foundation and Daily Signal. I'll get into this a little more in depth later. I'll be in for the Officer Tatum today. But I gotta say, if you go back to the beginning of the podcast, like I said, I'm not saying this to blow smoke. I believe here's what I believe. Let me just say this. Let me just say this straight up. All right. I believe in Gabe. Maybe this is the short. I believe that there are only 2 people in this race that are worth voting for, based upon accomplished policy, and that is either Trump or DeSantis. I think we're wasting our time. I'm just being honest. I think we're wasting our time with the rest of the candidates. I don't care how you feel about Trump. I don't care how you feel about DeSantis. I don't care about the little memes. I don't care about the jokes. I don't care about any of that. I'm not trying to get emotional over this stuff. I want to save the country. I think it's either one or two. And I think either one of them would do the job. Obviously, DeSantis gives us 2 terms, so that is something worth thinking about. But I think either one can do the job. DeSantis is the most conservative governor that we've seen in 40 years. All right. Trump is the most effective president that we've seen since Reagan. All right. No one else has those bona fides. Not Nikki Haley, not Chris Christie, not Vivek Ramaswamy. So again, DeSantis had his best night. Vivek was Vivek. All right. He did a great job. I gave DeSantis the slight edge. Nikki Haley, to me, although she's good, although she's decent, she's like the Bush wing of the Republican Party. I think she's in the wrong era. I think she's in the wrong race. I feel the same way about Senator Tim Scott. He is a 2008, a 2012 candidate. I don't feel like either one of them are a 2024 candidate. I just don't. All right, let's go ahead and play Governor Ron DeSantis.
He should explain why he didn't have Mexico pay for the border wall. He should explain why he racked up so much debt. He should explain why he didn't drain the swamp. And he said Republicans were going to get tired of winning. Well, we saw last night, I'm sick of Republicans.
All right, so that was Governor Ron DeSantis going after former President Donald Trump on questions that Donald Trump is, honestly, he would have to answer those questions if he were on the debate stage, which is why I get why Trump isn't going on the debate stage, especially if polling tells you you are 1,000 points ahead. I don't necessarily believe the polls. I do believe that Donald Trump is far ahead. However, I do believe, I'm just sharing the truth with you. We're at a one-on-one race. I don't think he'd be ahead. So, and that's not knocking him. I just think that people are so sick and tired of the deep state and how they're abusing Trump and his family that even those that were not on board with him say, you know what, screw this. I am going to vote for this guy, ride or die, because I don't want the deep state telling me who I can and cannot vote for. And I completely understand that. I just don't conflate the two. I'm like, can we fight the deep state and make sure that we get the best candidate, in my opinion, only two, Trump or DeSantis, make sure they scrap it out or squab it out to make sure that we, the people, get the best president possible and get them to make commitments and promises to the things that are going to make us stronger. That's what I want. I'm not sure that I'll get it. Doesn't look like it at this point, but I may. Based upon DeSantis finally seems to be kind of finding himself, so to speak, but it just might be too little too late. I'm not sure. But I will say this. I did check on some polling in Iowa, and apparently DeSantis and Trump are actually tied, contrary to popular belief. Now, I don't mean that they both have, they both have 49 points. You know what I'm saying? That's not what I mean. But when it came to voters in Iowa saying, who's your first and second choice? They tied 67% for Trump, 67% for DeSantis, where the voter said, Trump is my first pick. DeSantis is my second. DeSantis is my first pick. Trump is my second. So even though Trump has a lead overall, when it comes to those two, there's a question. Like, it's a closer battle in the state of Iowa. However, if DeSantis loses Iowa, he may have to pack his bags. Some people are saying if he gets second, he may be able. I don't know. I just don't know. I think you would have to place a very strong, close second. I just don't know. So anyway, we'll see. But I do think a lot of people are opining on the polls. I think the polls are a psyops campaign against the Republican Party and a bunch of grifters that are trying to make money. I don't even believe them. So many of the polls are counting, registered voters and not likely voters. You see how the polling got better in the races just the other day that we lost, right? The polling went from Daniel Cameron being down 16 points, a few weeks ago or a month ago, and then all of a sudden the polling says he's down 6. What did he lose by? 5 or 6 points. The polling got much better the closer we got. So I don't know what the deal was, but maybe more people started picking up their phones. I have no idea. But actually, I do have some idea. They were counting a lot of registered voters and not necessarily likely voters. I think more likely voters started to play a part. Also, Trump. I tried to get a printout. Did I get it? Oh, yes. And then Trump had his rally in Hialeah, Florida. Now, these are fun. I always listen. I've gone to 2 or 3 Trump rallies. I think I've gone to 2. I think it was 2. I'm not gonna lie. I went to the Stop the Steal one. That was really fun. Even though even though it was a dark time, I felt like at that time. That was one in Georgia. It was a decent rally to go to. I mean, at the time, it was insane. I'm sorry, that was an insane time. And then the first one I went to was when he kicked off his 2020 campaign right here in Orlando, Florida. That was an amazing. I mean, if you've never been to a Trump rally, it's like going to a concert. It is fun as all get out. Here's the deal. I don't think the Trump rallies gets him new voters anymore. I just don't. I think they're very fun to go to. I think they work for Trump. I think he's doing what he needs to do. In a sense, he's campaigning in a different way by distracting from the other candidates, and that way he doesn't have to answer any tough questions. And then it's just Trump being Trump. I'm a man on an island by my lonesome and all of my homies and supporters that are voting for me. But I do believe when that comes to, if he were to win the nomination, comes to battleground states and stuff like, I don't think the rallies work anymore. I just don't. I don't think they equate to new voters. Voters want substance. They want to know, okay, Trump, this is what you did in 2016 or after 2016. This is what's occurred since you've been out of office. Much of your policy were executive orders. What can you get done legislatively? And I think that's going to be some serious conversation if he's to become the nominee. So we'll have to wait and see. But he talked about us being close to being in World War III. I will say this, bar none, this guy was excellent on foreign policy. All right. He talked about the Hamas sympathizers inside of Congress. He said, we cannot have an administration that takes foreign policy advice from Representatives Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib. He said, I will also quickly cancel the student visas of all Hamas sympathizers on college campuses, which have been infested with radicalism like never before. This is something that all of them, frankly, said, but obviously Trump is saying it here. He said, I implemented a strong travel ban. They could call it the Trump travel ban. All right. He wants to terminate every open borders policy. He's going to have to work with we've got to get legislation. It can't be executive orders. It can't be temporary stuff like remain in Mexico. City policy, as great of a policy as that needs to become law. All right. That needs to become law. Also, what was the one? Was it remain in Mexico when people were sick during COVID? All right, maybe that was remain in Mexico as well. But anyway, he says not one penny for vaccine mandate. So obviously he has to back away from the vaccine thing. With RFK Jr. being in the race, all right, running as an independent, you can bet your bottom dollar if Donald Trump becomes a nominee, RFK Jr. is going to hit him hard on this. And I got news for you. RFK Jr. is going to score points. I think RFK Jr. is a threat to the Republican Party more and to Donald Trump, frankly, than he is to the left. And actually, polling has shown that, if you believe the polls. All right, now, also inflation. He said it's a country buster. He said inflation is called a country buster, and it's busting our country right now. You can go back 300 years, and you can see why some great empires failed. Many of them failed because of the world inflation, and he is so right about that. He said if you look at Germany and so many other countries, inflation is a country buster, and it's busting our country right now, where bacon is 5 times more expensive than it was just a short while ago. Bacon, even if I say I don't want any bacon, it's too expensive. All right, so he's on. Listen, he's on point. There's no doubt about it. The Cuban regime, he talked about what's happening to him and his family with the persecutions, and I am intentionally using that word, with the persecutions of he and his family. It's just absolutely wrong. And it reminds him of a Cuban-style regime, and I think he's absolutely right to say just that. Guys, listen, I appreciate you tuning in. Also, please support my sponsor, Mike Lindell, at mypillow.com, promo code Carl, mypillow.com, promo code Carl. Go to the Radio Podcast Square, use the promo code Carl, C-A-R-L, or give them a call, 800-858-0263. That is 800-858-0263. Plenty of deals available for you leading up to this Christmas season, or while we're in this Christmas season and leading up to Christmas. Go to the Radio Podcast Square. Enter Carl. All right. American jobs, American manufacturing, 50% off of Giza Dream Sheets. And there are some deals where they are 50 plus, some are 60% off and more. So just go there and check them out. mypillow.com, and I would appreciate it as well. But guys, it was the best debate that I've seen so far. We'll have to wait and see how the numbers shake out. Oh, I forgot to mention this. One big mistake I think DeSantis did make is not mentioning the Iowa endorsement by Governor Kim Reynolds. That was I don't know how he neglected to do that. Sometimes maybe you just forget. But that's something he should have done. Iowa is the first big stop. That was a huge get. I don't care what anybody on the right or left says. That is a huge get. I think it's even bigger, even though as much as I like Sarah Huckabee Sanders, I'd love to see her as president one day. I think she's a bomb. I really do. Maybe she needs a little more experience, but I think Sarah Huckabee Sanders is the bomb. But I think it was an even more potent, a powerful endorsement because Iowa is just the first state, and DeSantis needs to win it. And Governor Kim Reynolds is liked by like 80% of people there. It's insane. All right, she's very popular there. Anyway, having said that, guys, I appreciate you tuning in. Until next time, Do not grow weary doing good. Again, I think DeSantis, the slight winner of the debate, Ramaswamy second, Nikki Haley third, even though I think Ramaswamy kept her on her heels a little bit last night. We'll see how that plays out in polling. Tim Scott, Chris Christie, no need to be in the race. It's as simple as that. All right, guys, until next time, don't grow weary doing good. God bless you.